Good morning. It's early and it's already so hot in Southern California. Oh, so hot. Um, how y'all doing? It is Tuesday tea with me, Robin Swan, over here at Firebird Touch Therapy, or actually in my backyard. But we are unable to get it together to go live from our Firebird Touch Therapy page. So we're just so hopeful that we're going to be able to figure that out before the end of time or before the Facebook media is completely gone. So the reason why I am doing these bi-monthly morning chats with you all is because there's just so many awesome people here in the world. There's so many amazing human beings that are on our Facebook feed that have so much to share. And we're all kind of, at least in this flow, interested in cannabis as a medicine. And there's a lot of misinformation about cannabis as a medicine, you know, for sure. And a lot of people are armchair doctors and all of a sudden have degrees in herbology and medicine because they like to smoke pot. So, you know, smoking weed is not a skill set to know how to diagnose or treat somebody with cannabis. It's just a super fun thing to do. So one of the people that I want to introduce you to is my really super dear friend, Elizabeth Mack, who is a cannabis nurse and the creator of this program, Cannabis for Health. Become a coach so you can learn how to do things. But we like to start things here at Firebird, you know, before we make any medicine, before we do anything in our lab or in, you know, our studio or just with people. We always like to offer it up to the creator and to our ancestors. So we're going to burn some sage. There it is, growing in the background, but now it's in a bowl, all nice and dry. So I'm going to offer up this sage for all of you, wherever you are, however you need it. You know, that the creator can just lay its hand on you and just bless you with whatever you need, however you need it this morning. You know, only you know what's up. So, you know, through the virtual reality of our new world, take in some of that smudge. Let it just kind of like blow off all that stuff that no longer serves you and clean up your auric field so you can go forward today in a beauty way, and you can give the blessings to everyone that you are, because you yourself are an amazing blessing and you have so much to offer everyone. And that's my goal, is to get you to turn on to yourself. And then we always like to offer up some water, some tea. That's why we call it Tuesday. Tuesday would be Tuesday tea. Yeah. So this is a beautiful little tea set that was offered, given to me as a gift from my sweet sister, Heidi Jaguar Eyes. And we always make this force pour for the grandmothers, the grandfathers, the as above, the so below, that all that is within us is without us, and that this water, this mini wachosa, maim, this water of life, without it, none of us live. So we're going to offer it over here to the grass and just take a minute wherever you are in this virtual world with this smoke and this water, and bless yourself in a good way so you can have all that you need. You know, a lot of times it's us who get in the pathway of our blessings. You know, it's not somebody else blocking you from your blessings. It's you. It's you and your, you know, brain. Really bad neighborhoods, stay out of it. So I'm going to offer up this water and ask that you all have a peaceful, cool day, that whatever you need, whatever thirst you have is quenched, and that you realize that you are a beautiful demonstration of the Creator. You are perfect and divine in every way. Oh, so I am giving that to them. So I've invited Elizabeth Mack to come and join us. You know, this is a good time. Elizabeth is a really smart lady. Her and I have done a lot of work together. And she's going to have a lot of information for everybody about how to dose cannabis, you know, how to source good cannabis, how to become your own cannabis coach. And here she is. Elizabeth has arrived. Let's bring her on.
I got my Bluetooth. Can you hear me?
Okay, good morning. I can. I'm so happy to see you. All right, everyone who's watching, all 7 of you and the 30,000 who are, you know, going to watch us later. Welcome.
Thank you.
And say good morning to
good morning, world.
Elizabeth Mack, RN, BSN, MBA. Okay, what's a BSN?
It's a Bachelor of Science in Nursing.
Oh, so you are kind of a smart lady.
Yes, and a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology. When I was in college, I double majored.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. I have to tell you, since this is my friend, I know her very well, and she is incredibly smart. Incredibly smart. So, Elizabeth, I always like to start with like, how did you come? Here you are, Miss Corporate World. You had some things in your life happen that were very intense, and all of a sudden you end up in cannabis. So, can you give us kind of like the clip note of how you went from selling insurance to creating a program for cannabis coaches?
Well, it started with disillusionment with the healthcare system. I was implementing Obamacare, and I had a moral aversion to charging people more premiums and taking away their benefits. And right about the same time I was doing that, I crashed my bicycle and went out on leave to have surgery. Was at my chiropractor office, had a medical massage, and the therapist was using CBD in the oil. And I said, "Hey, what is this? It smells funny." She said, "It's cannabis." And I said, "I don't want cannabis." And she goes, "Well, you have an endocannabinoid system, and it's going to decrease your pain, inflammation, and help you get back your function much faster." And I said, "Okay, sign me up and tell me more." And I decided not to go back to Anthem at that time, and I started to work in cannabis and did some insurance
So you had
part-time.
such a powerful experience from
Yeah.
a topical massage that you ended your career in like corporate America and took a left turn into the cannabis world.
Well, I did part-time insurance for that year, but what I ended up doing was healing myself, because not only did I take the topical, but I started to take some Cannabis, which was some flash-dried CBD, and it was all really great flower-derived, lab-tested, organic, whole plant CBD from the Triangle. And so once I started to take that internally, I started to heal, and I didn't want to take my Motrin anymore. I didn't want to take the Flexeril. I didn't need the medicine I was taking for depression and blood pressure. All of these things started to just go away. And then during that year, it was a transition of a year. Then I just decided, people are making these medicines, people are selling the medicines, but nobody's telling patients how to do this as a clinician. So I decided to put my nursing hat back on and get rid of the insurance sales hat. And that's how I went back into medicine for cannabis.
Right. So, and once you got into the medicine aspect of cannabis, wasn't it astounding how much misinformation was floating about?
Well, absolutely. I mean, that nobody understands that this plant is truly a medicine if you use it properly, and nobody in the traditional side knows about the endocannabinoid system. They're not educated about.
Right. So there's some people who are actually listening who might not know what that is. So can you were so awesome with charts and graphs. Can you just give us a quick like overview on what is this thing called the endocannabinoid system? Where does it live? What does it do?
It lives at CB1 and CB2 receptors all over your body.
Okay, what does that mean to anybody? Like, okay, now we have to get Elizabeth to talk to us in like, low grade human and not like high volume Vulcan.
Well, I know, and you love to call me a Vulcan. So back in 1964, there was a guy in Israel. His name was Raphael Meshulam. He was isolating and synthesizing THC and trying to figure out how it worked in the body and what the variance was when people took it. How some people got hungry or tired or angry or silly or didn't feel a thing or paranoid or sleepy, and all with the same product. So he knew that we were reacting to this and trying to map out in the body. So it took another 20 years till we started to find receptors. But once they got the isotopes ready to go into the body with the THC, then they could map it out in imaging. And then they saw that our body lights up like a Christmas tree when we put THC into it. So we are hardwired for these plant with cannabinoid receptors. So they named them cannabinoid receptor 1 and 2, and they figured out the functions, physiological functions, like all of our perceptions, our immune functions, our neurological functions, and cannabinoids from the plant activate this. So then, one more thing, he said, surely we're not hardwired for a plant. We must make something endogenously that stimulates these receptors. And that's when they found the endocannabinoids, thus named the endocannabinoid system. So these are the ones that you make endogenously that activate these. And what they figured out those
so endogenous let's explain what that word means. Endogenous,
like endorphins, the medicines that
so we
you
make them
organically.
Yes, they're an organic thing that our body makes. So our body organically is making the pathway for receptors for cannabis, correct?
Yes, we're making the receptors and we're making the endocannabinoids on demand in response to stress. And what they do at the cellular gap is that they're able to provide feedback. So if communication is going one way in the body, the endocannabinoids will send the message back to say, hey, turn something up or down. I'm needing balance here. And the whole system is a regulatory system that tries to seek homeostasis or balance at the cellular level. So that's what the endocannabinoids do throughout the body. They're constantly looking at that push-pull. Imagine inflammation or an immune response. It has to be enough to fight the infection, but not enough to be excessive and be autoimmune conditions where it doesn't turn off again, right? And the endocannabinoids regulate that. Same thing with neurology and glutamate and GABA. And think about the exciting or the inhibiting types of neurotransmitters and even all the other receptors that cannabinoids can hit. So, you know, it's something that just gives us the fine tuning. All your other 11 body systems work as they're supposed to, but the endocannabinoid system sort of rides on top like that receiver, providing that fine tuning and buffering to bring us into Goldilocks zone. And that's what the endocannabinoids. Zone.
Yeah,
the Goldilocks zone.
Been there. So one thing about the CB1 and CB2 receptors is that they're not just randomly throughout the body. They have specific locations.
They're on cell membranes. They're sit on the cell membranes.
Right, exactly. And of certain organs as well, correct?
Organs, spleen, liver, bone, blood cells, mainly in the brain and the central channel, and that's CB1. That has to do with your pain perceptions, your thinking, your mentation. If you smoke a little cannabis, you're going to have changes to your sensation, your memory, your mood, your motor functions. If you have a little bit more and it goes down into the gut, you're going to affect your immune cells and all of the cells in your.
This is one of the reasons why the way that you ingest cannabis matters. You know, it's very different. Like an edible is a very different experience than smoking cannabis or using a tincture.
Right, and we're lucky to have all of these modern medicines that address every route of administration. There's 4 main ways you can take cannabis into the body. You can inhale it.
What are they?
Right, you can inhale it through your lungs, through a vape or smoking. Are you smoking now? No.
I am not smoking. Okay. No, I am drinking coffee. It is 7 a.m. I want to make it to 9.
Nice. Okay. So that's the first one. The second, you can eat it, and inhalation gives you the fastest route. So activates those receptors, boom, within minutes. Edibles,
right? Because when you're smoking, let's go piece by piece, because there's so much information in every of these 4 ways. Okay, so when you smoke cannabis, you are literally decarboxylating the plant as you're using it.
As you heat it, yes.
As you heat it, yeah. So like and so that's why it's an immediate blood-brain breaker.
Yep.
I can't even say it. Breaker.
And cannabinoids do cross the blood-brain barrier. So
right.
Yeah, one of these days we're going to target them with other medicines to go up into the brain and alter things as well. But so inhalation, the great thing about it is immediate onset, and the duration is not that long. So you're not taken out if you've had too much THC for very long, an hour or 2. Edibles is the other side of the coin. So you eat something, and now you've got to wait 30 to 60 minutes, depending on your metabolism, how much food you've had in the stomach. But the good thing about an edible is that once it kicks in an hour, it'll give you a long duration. So you have pain management for hours and hours.
Right. So edibles are excellent for pain management.
Yeah.
They're a better fit than smoking cannabis. An edible is a much better fit.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And
all
then
right, so
go ahead.
Go on. No, go on.
So and then the third way is let's just go with the topical. And the topical is, what I was using on my shoulder after my 3 surgeries. You rub it on. It's got a localized effect. It penetrates in the skin. CB1 and CB2 are both there. So it can reduce the pain and reduce the inflammation. And, that it's a quick onset.
And one of the most awesome things about topical use of cannabis is that it doesn't cross the liver. So therefore, you will not fail a drug test.
Well, it doesn't really penetrate into the systemic bloodstream, so it's not
exactly. So you won't. So you can still get the benefit from it. This is an important piece of information for people who have CDLs and other jobs where drug testing is a big deal for them, and they still need to use cannabis to heal themselves. Topically is a wonderful way to go because of those CB1 and 2 receptors and the fact that it even though it's transdermal, it's not completely saturating.
Right. Yeah, and well, there are transdermal patches, just like the nicotine delivering, where they will actually put that on and it boosts into the bloodstream, so you can actually use a transdermal patch with systemic, and that would be intoxicating, and you would still not pass a drug test.
And you would Fail a drug test.
Yeah,
So you
you
need to
would
be
fail it.
really aware when you're choosing what you're using,
Yeah.
depending on what your, profession is.
Yeah, and
Okay.
then I
And the fourth
saved my
one,
best for last is the
best for
tincture.
last, the tincture.
Yes, yes, I
Elizabeth's favorite.
love
Okay, so let's
tinctures.
just stop here. So it took Elizabeth 2 years to convince me to make one. So tell me why. It was so like I was so not. I'm not making tinctures.
Well, Robin specializes in concentrates, right? And so you have the fully extracted cannabis oil, which is wonderful, but it's hard to dose, right? And so with a tincture, you're able to get very methodical with how much you take, and you can always dial in the milligrams. And each bottle, hold on, let me get one here.
Ooh, she has product in front of her.
And look what I have. Okay,
Oh, and
so
she has our product. Good job, Elizabeth.
there you go. So one of the great things about this, so let's just say you have a syringe of fully extracted cannabis oil and there's 600 milligrams in there. Well, there's also 600 milligrams in this bottle, right? In 30 milliliters of grapeseed or hemp seed oil or something like that. And so you can dose this easily because the dropper is calibrated and it has markings in it. So let's just say I want 10 milligrams. I can go right up to that midpoint there, and that's my dose, right? It's so easy to use. So seniors especially, they don't want to be dosing too much or too little. So this allows us to dial it in. And a tincture has an onset in about 15 minutes. So it goes into the bloodstream, starts working. The effects are very mild. And then they'll last about 4 to 6 hours. So if you're having a lot of pain management, you can consistently dose every 4 to 6 hours. So you're not having pain spikes like this. You could just say, okay, I'm going to take this every 6 hours once you learn your body and your metabolism, and then you make this work for you.
And one of the things, like we're talking about pain a lot here. So a lot of people will reach out to me and they're on gabapentin or they're on, other narco kind of drugs. So let's talk about a little bit about like gabapentin is a neuroblocker. So, when it's used, it gets in the way. Some of these, what's the word for them? The pain management drugs, the Oxycontin, things like that.
Those are opiates.
Opiates. Yeah. Okay. So they don't, people ask me, about their drug. This is the part that makes me nuts in the cannabis industry. If you're on pharmaceuticals and you step into cannabis, there is a zone where you have to know what you're using.
Right.
So can we talk a little bit as a nurse about like, people who are on gabapentin, Oxycontin, and then all of a sudden, or, they're doing chemotherapy, they're using other drugs, how cannabis plays in with these other drugs and what people have to be aware of.
Yeah. So if we're using just a few milligrams, so 5 to 10 milligrams a couple times a day, we don't need to be too worried about the cannabinoids and the pharmaceuticals. But what I always tell people to do is space them out. So at least an hour from the pharmaceuticals, and usually you do the pharmaceuticals first, because what happens is we have enzymes in the liver that process all of the things that we put into our body, pharmaceuticals and cannabinoids and food and things like that. And there are pathways that the liver takes to break down these medicines to excrete them out of the body, and they need an enzyme. So what happens with CBD sometimes is that it will hog that enzyme, and the other drugs can't get it, so they can build up in the body and cause a toxicity. So what we try to do is give the other drugs first. If you're taking pharmaceuticals and cannabis, take your medicines, and then an hour or two later, then take your cannabis, take your tincture. So space it 1 to 2 hours after your drug dose, and that'll give the other drugs some time to get out of the body, and then you can put the cannabinoids in, so that'll minimize that. But usually when we're talking about under 50 milligrams a day, it's not too jarring. But here's the thing: seniors that are on a bunch of these drugs, think about the 65 plus Medicare generation, and they're taking something for depression, something for anxiety, some blood pressure issues, blood sugar issues. And almost always the gabapentin, because they've got nerve dysregulation, they've got pain, they've got inflammatory pain, they've got neuropathy, and all of these drugs, basically gabapentin is sort of an anticonvulsant, and so it's turning down that nervous system. So even with just a few milligrams of the cannabinoids, it can potentiate those drugs. And so as soon as possible, we want to engage the other side of the treatment plan that's writing the pharmaceutical prescriptions and say, hey, our blood pressures are trending down, blood sugars are trending down, I'm not in so much pain, can we cut the dose of some of these other drugs? So over time, usually about a year process, most people are able to wean down probably half of their pharmaceuticals on dosing.
And sometimes even off, but it's really
Right.
crucial what you said. And the key word there was wean down.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're using pharmaceuticals and you decide, or you are feeling like you want to use also cannabis, it's really important that you're engaging with your doctor and you're having the conversation about what you're doing, because you can't just go off like gabapentin.
Right.
So it's really, and I, again, the armchair doctors, the cannabis herbalists, the ones who don't have any real education, but they can smoke weed really well and they grew a plant. It's really important that when you're getting information from these people, that you ask them what their background is,
Right.
and what their actual education is.
Well, and because there's a lot of people who have loved this plant and have been making medicines and distributing them, but they don't know anything about medicine. You do, I do. And one of the reasons I wrote this book, Become a Coach, Cannabis for Health. Yeah, see, we both have it.
We both have the book, and it's such a good book.
This invites healthcare providers to start understanding this so that they can have a more educated conversation with their patients, because what we need to do is train other providers.
Exactly.
And, I've been a cannabis nurse specialist for the past 5 years, but the economics don't always work for everybody to go see a specialist. But imagine one day when every provider knows the basics about the endocannabinoid system, the interactions, the routes, the dosing, the different kinds of formulations. What is a THC oil versus a 1-to-1, a 4-to-1, or a 20-to-1? What does that mean? How do you use it? How do we interlace these different modes of administration to make it work for the patients? How do we focus on high CBD in the day and a little bit of THC and microdosing at nighttime to help people sleep better? All of these things need to be taught to these healthcare professionals, and they need to understand that cannabinoids are very promiscuous. They're going throughout the body, hitting all kinds of...
Cannabinoids are promiscuous?
Yes.
That's why we all like weed, right? Because we all got a little bit of the nasty inside of us.
Well, I've
never heard that. I am so stealing that.
So CBD can activate both dopamine and serotonin. So serotonin, 5-HT receptors, antidepressant, just like Zoloft or Prozac, Paxil, those sorts of things, except CBD doesn't have the side effects of those other drugs, giving you horrible...
So let's talk a little bit about that, about there's all this conversation about CBD, THC, and like CBD is not a standalone, THC is not a standalone, single molecule CBG. So what are things like I love real CBD that's been processed from a cannabis plant as opposed to an industrial hemp plant. What are some of the things that and CBD is in case you don't know this, and I hope all of you do, just is an acronym for the word cannabinoid. All right.
Cannabidiol.
Cannabidiol. Ooh, thank you for correcting me. For cannabidiol. And that is one side of the molecular chain. So what are the things that CBD can do without THC, because it has its own properties?
Correct. So CBD, we have found that it activates about 60 receptors in the body. So the 5-HT receptor is the first one. That's helping you make serotonin. And that's why even just CBD from hemp can help people calm down and reduce anxiety and to lift their mood and improve their focus, because that's what CBD is doing at 5-HT. Small amounts will also activate dopamine. Dopamine might be good for people that are having Parkinson's. To sort of restore that level. We don't know as far as, clinically exactly where we need to be on dosing. And the problem is, sometimes the clinical trials are looking at CBD at 600 milligrams, and that's like one entire bottle, right? So it's not possible in the way that we're looking at this.
Well, I think that's another part with the problem with the clinical trials, and the difference between, cannabis and pharmaceuticals is that I'm very fond of saying that, this is homeopathy. Cannabis is homeopathy. Yes. And it's not a one size fits all.
And you also have to realize in the clinical trials that they're doing, most of them are using isolate. So they're using a purified isolate CBD to go into the body and figure out what it does, and that is not...
Now, I have recently in this last year... Well, go on, finish it, I'll say.
It's not as therapeutic as whole plant CBD. So what we've also found...
Except for what we've also seen, I just have to stop you, because I've been making... I was super anti-single molecule. I was like super anti it. And then I learned how to do it, and I started using it, and I learned through working with a doctor in Prague,
Mm-hmm.
that by snorting the CBD isolate, like up through your nose, right to CBD1, it is phenomenal at reducing brain tumors. Phenomenal. It's also phenomenal at lifting your mood. So even in its singular form, although it's not therapeutic and necessary medical, it's incredibly, incredibly helpful for a lot of my kids that have autism are benefiting greatly from just the single molecule
Yep.
of of cannabidiol.
Well, right, and an isolate is always therapeutic as a boost. So you might want to use that to improve focus and to give you that mood a lift or something.
And that's why you got to do it like a bump, just like that.
Well, and we have. It's a fun thing.
It's awesome.
Yeah, Robin likes to say that CBD is Adderall without the come down. And
I do. I'm very fond of saying that a CBD isolate, because I've seen it in my clientele, I've seen it in my client base, that it will take out Adderall. Like they won't need to use it anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, your CBD isolate is really good to enhance focus. You get a good hour of getting in that zone and be able to work through some documents and that sort of thing. So it's but going back to the whole plant. You want that whole plant systemically
for
every
real
day.
Healing, yes, exactly.
Yes, for real healing, and to have all of the cannabinoids with the entourage effect, because CBD,
Right.
CBG, CBC, CBDA, THCA, it's not like 1 + 1 = 2 or 3 with these. It's more like 20, right? And I always
like to
liken
tell people, like your hands, you have 10 fingers, right? How effective are you with one?
That's a good one. Yeah. Yeah. So, but CBD also, it activates G protein coupled receptors all over the place. PPAR, that has to do with anti-proliferative effects, inflammation, immune function. It activates a lot in the gut to be able to tone down secretions when they're excessive, to calm down.
So it would be helpful for like leaky gut.
Yes,
leaky gut, it would be helpful.
Crohn's, all of those sorts of things, right? CBD also is healing other neurotransmitters that affects epinephrine, norepinephrine. So some of our motivations, energy levels, arousal. So yes, even arousal.
I'm all into the arousal, right?
Yeah.
Would you say promiscuous? I like cannabis because it's promiscuous.
CBD is.
So
THC is a little less promiscuous. THC goes right into CB1, CB2. THC is very targeted, and so you don't need that much.
So let's talk about THC right now. That's right, because like I'm also fond of saying there's a whole group of molecules in the CBD family, and there's only 2 in the THC family. So I like to call it sperm and eggs, right? Like, we have all these eggs, right? We only need 1 sperm to make a baby.
Right.
So THC is that powerful. So when you're using CBD and THC, you just need it just to be present, just to be present to kick off that whole spark of healing. But THC has some very targeted things that it does. So can you share about that?
Well, THC is going to activate like a lock and key in the CB1, CB2 receptors. So, and they are throughout the body. So again, we normally think about CB1 in the brain and the central channel, and we think about CB2 in the gut and the immune cells and the bone cells. But literally, they're everywhere. I was reading Hugh Bleshing's book, Cannabis and Pain, last night, and he was talking about all the CB1, CB2 receptors on the adrenal glands that have everything to do with processing your neurotransmitters and how those work. And when we need to calm down fight or flight, THC hits CB1 on the adrenal glands so that we're able to calm down. So that's why small doses are going to be good for anxiety. Large doses, now we have to talk about how the biphasic nature of CBD, both of them, but especially THC, needs to be cautioned with patients. And this is why clinicians need to know how to use it. You take 1 to 2 milligrams of this, you're going to be just fine. You take 20 milligrams, that anxiety might turn to a pure panic. Right?
Exactly. Especially if you have it, I've noticed over the last, 20 plus years of working with these cannabinoids that people who have that paranoid receptor, they get paranoid with THC, they're like allergic to it. It's like an allergic reaction to it. But if you dose it down to just a tiny little, like she's saying, like, under 10 milligrams, they're going to get that healing, and they're going to get, they're not going to be paranoid or scared.
Right. And you know what? Some of the clients that I'm working with, they're getting more specific with the DNA tests. So EndoDNA, Greenway DNA, it's about $100. You could do your swab and send it off for a DNA test, and they'll tell you whether or not you're a fast or slow metabolizer of THC, how much you should be using, what your ratio should
Ooh,
be.
you're going to have to get us the link for that, because I think that sounds really interesting. We'll have to drop that. We'll get that link to
Yeah.
Haley, and she'll drop it in this feed.
Yeah,
Where
it's
you can get
so
that tested for
Greenway
yourself.
DNA,
Greenway
greenwaydna.com, and we're going to be partnering with them going forward on the clinics to make this approachable for all patients to be able to get that test, because if it's only $100 at this point, it used to be very expensive, like $1,000.
It's less expensive than the coronavirus test.
Well, you can't get a coronavirus test, even though some presidents think you can. But anyway, it's something to dial in, your specificity for especially people that, want to make this work right away, right?
Right.
I came into this 5.5 years ago, and I'm okay with the trial and error for myself. I've dialed it in now, but for years and years, I was experimenting with different things. Now I know specifically what I need. But imagine if we could shorten that path so that within 30 days, somebody really knows how to be super effective with this, right? And it's not just about, I'm going to try this and have it backfire, and then try that and say, I'm not going to do that again, and say that, and that wasn't effective. No, imagine if we could really sculpt a treatment plan like that with these DNA tests. That would be really cool. But going back to the medicine, I mean, it's all about the quality of the medicine. One of the things I keep telling patients,
right,
you have to know how to shop for this.
Exactly. And we have to stop right here, because I just have to say this. So it is really, there are a lot of people who are trying to help people who are making concentrates, and they're sourcing them from wherever. And it's really important for everyone to understand that when you concentrate plant material, you also concentrate all of the chemicals that it's grown with. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no way to get a clean product if you start with a dirty one. You cannot process it out in the lab. You cannot burn it off through the decarboxylation period. So it is so crucial. It just is one of the things that just makes my head spin when people don't know what they're using. If you don't know what you're using, you cannot treat yourself effectively. I love all of you backyard medicine makers. And the reason why we're doing this is to help all of you do a better job of what you're doing, which is why a book like this, even though she's talking about, healthcare providers, this book, I've read it, as awesome, is designed, it has all these awesome chapters in it. It's going to show you, the human, and you can get it on Amazon, just any person, how to begin to dose yourself, understand the medicine mix for yourself. But all of you who are making it, it's super important that you have a lab test on the flower that you're starting with. And all of you who are taking it for things like cancer, it is crucial. And I can't stress it enough that you have that medicine tested. Yep. So you make sure that you're not taking pesticides.
Yes.
From your dear friend who tried to do something really nice for you, but compounded Eagle 1, which is a cloning agent, which at certain levels is extremely toxic. So, cannabis testing is really important for medicine. I just can't stress it enough.
You need whole plant, you need organic, no pesticides, you need lab tested and flower derived, right? So, and you've been growing great medicines for years, but, there are people that are buying industrial hemp CBD, and it could have been, grown to clear a field of toxins. The industrial hemp is a bioaccumulator, so it's very useful for that. But it's not useful to put it in the body. It can be toxic. And so
and that's a really important thing that you said. Industrial hemp is a what was the word that you used?
Bioaccumulator.
Accumulator. That means that, like in Fukushima, they planted hemp to pick up all of the radiation in the ground. So now, if that same industrial hemp, and I'm not saying this is happening, but if all that industrial hemp is picked up and processed and put out on the shelf, which, it's possible in America for something like that to go down, then what we're getting is just a bunch of garbage and chemicamos and poison.
Yeah, you don't want Chinese hemp.
The source of that medicine is crucial. It's I can't stress it enough. I'm so impassioned about it.
Yeah. So sourcing the medicine is one of the things that you need to do. And then, just really dialing it in and looking at it, and how you want to use this. One of the things I talk about, with respect to cannabis medicine is the focus and the intention recreational or medicinal? How do you want to use it? Because then it really matters on how we sit down and sculpt a treatment plan and teach people about these cannabinoids, teach them about the modes of use, teach them about the broad applications and the possibility to wean pharmaceuticals. So when you get the medicine right, you can really accomplish health. And we need to, because, I don't know if you've noticed, but you can't even go to the doctor's office right now Healthcare in America has become self-care. And this is one of the things I'm talking to people about all the time now, because we've never had more of an impetus to take good care of ourselves, physically, emotionally, spiritually, because we don't have a real healthcare system in this country. And it's really called out now that we have a sick care system. And so, you know, one of the things, you know, because I spent 20 years at insurance companies, and it bothers me so much of what it has become. You know, we need to really change. You know, I saw Bernie last night on the DNC conference talking about Medicare for all and healthcare for all, and you know that is an ideal, but we need to, you know, it's going to take a while to really transform this system. But in the meantime, people need to do self-care, and they need to understand that if you use cannabinoids, you can change your health status much faster than you could with pharmaceuticals, and much more completely and safely and effectively, and you don't have the side effects from the liver and the kidney damage and stomach bleeding and all the other things, cardiovascular issues. People don't realize how much harm the pills are doing. And, you know, I have to say, you know, for me, when I crashed my bicycle, I had about a dozen pharmaceuticals a day. And now, like yesterday, I didn't have a pill. Today, well, it's early, but I haven't had a pill. Right. And, you know, every time I say, and I like to say that I help other people say that I haven't had a pill today, because that is just so hopeful in this time of so much uncertainty. If we can take more responsibility for our own health, you know, self-healing, emotional release. You have to face your problems, take responsibility for them, but guess what? Then you have control. You're empowered. Same thing with physiologies. You can start to address your healing with cannabinoids in a very methodical way, and then guess what? They also work on the mind and the emotions, and then pretty soon your spirit opens up, and now you're a whole person. So it's not just about healthcare; it's about wholeness, you know. And cannabis can help that journey.
Yeah, cannabis has this amazing way, because of the way that it opens up your receptors. It opens up your brain. Ted is asking about cannabis for high blood pressure. Let's address that, because cannabis does affect the blood pressure up and down.
Absolutely.
And you know, it's something to be aware of. So what do you have to say about that?
So cannabis is a vasodilator, vasorelaxant. So it'll open up the blood vessels. So whether you're taking a tincture, it's much more controllable with a tincture. So you're taking a CBD tincture every day, it's going to normalize and slowly trend down. That's why people over time can come down and off of those blood pressure pills. THC, when you inhale it, it automatically, boom, it'll open up your blood pressure, your blood vessels, and then that's also why your heart starts pounding, right? If you've ever noticed, you take a couple hits of pot and all of a sudden you get a really fast heart rate. Your blood pressure is open. You're gonna stand up and be dizzy, because it's very wide open. And slowly it'll normalize, and that heart rate will come down. But that's an immediate effect of inhalation.
So sometimes I have clients in that, you know, like they're using the concentrates or even the tinctures, and they're using a higher THC, and they get very scared, because they're having that heart racing experience, and they feel like that's going to lead them somewhere. Is that going to lead them somewhere? Because what can we say to those people to make them more relaxed?
Well, first of all, add CBD with it. You know, unless you're dosing, you know, for cancer, and you don't necessarily want CBD at the same time as THC, because you really want to activate the receptors singularly. CBD in the morning, THC at night. But ideally, you're in bed, you're safe. You're well hydrated, you're well fed. So that's the other thing, to offset some of the blood sugar.
Safe, right.
Right, and this is all about patient teaching, which is why clinicians need to know how to do this. These are some things that can
like really help you as a person. Like if you are feeling like your heart is racing from the medicine, go sit down, get a glass of water, bring yourself down.
Right, do some deep breathing, turn on some TV to distract yourself, get a book, help yourself laugh. Talk with somebody else, just realize that you're okay, because the THC stimulating the heart, stimulating that anxiety, it does soften with some distraction, and it's really not that long. You know, if you're taking 100 milligrams of THC, you're gonna feel that, but you've titrated up over a slow weaning process to ramp up. So that you shouldn't be having that kind of stimulation. But if you do have too much THC, just get in bed, watch something funny, drink some water, and eat something.
And eat something that is high in fat, or black pepper is another great one. Citrus will bring you down. There's all these, and then again, use a CBD tincture or something to just lessen it immediately. It will just bring it down way more than citicoline. I'm not a fan of that stuff.
No.
So someone's asking a question about how do we make sure that we get high quality medicine? Well, the way that you make sure that you have high quality medicine is you ask questions from the people who are providing it to you. Like, where did it come from? Did you grow it? Where was it grown? How is it processed?
And getting the certificate of analysis. You have to have the COA.
Exactly, a test, a lab test. Now, we spend thousands of dollars on testing, all the time. Like, I think we spent like almost $70,000 last year on just lab tests, because it's that important to me as a person to be able to make sure that it's not only clean, but it's consistent. Right. Because, if you're getting something that you think is 600 milligrams, but it's actually 400 or it's actually 800, then how are you going to really regulate and know yourself? And again, back to the book. Okay. So Elizabeth is so knowledgeable, and you can find her on Facebook on her Holistic Caring page, or you can just reach out to her at her Facebook page, Elizabeth Mack, where we're coming off of. You can get this book on Amazon.
Well, actually, Amazon is slow. People that order from Amazon, it takes like a month to get for some reason. But if you go to the website, holisticcaring.com, you order through Author House, which is the publisher, and you'll get it in a week. Good. And it's cheaper. Cool.
All right. Yeah, it's less expensive. So Haley's going to put that in the feed. But, this book is really important because it allows you to become the cannabis coach. It allows you, this is great. It's a business in a box. You can, if you're a practitioner and you want to learn more about cannabis, super awesome, read the book to help your clients. But for all of you folks who are just healing yourself, she did such a great job on explaining the endocannabinoid system, how things work. I mean, she's super smart. There's all these charts in it, she read like a million books. Like a million books. Like, I'm not even kidding.
Well, in 2015, what happened was when I got bit by the cannabinoid bug, I literally checked out every book there was in the library for like 2
literally,
years.
She's not kidding.
Yeah, and then I read all of the things online. And,
literally.
projectcbd.org is one of my favorite websites to also go to and read the basics about cannabis. But, I wrote all these programs. I wrote that book, and from the book, I designed the course. And the course is an online course now. So it's got 30 different units. It's 3 big modules with about 7 units in each module. It goes through the history and the research of cannabis, how we had this as medicine for thousands of years. And in this country up until the 20s and 30s, when racial tones got us to prohibit it. Then we lost it in 1937 with the Marijuana Tax Act. And then it came out of the pharmacopoeia. And then in 1970, it was put into the Controlled Substance Act as Schedule 1. No medical benefits, highly addictive and dangerous. And that was all because Richard Nixon wanted to, get rid of the hippies, and he couldn't put them in jail for protesting the war, but he could put them in jail for having pot. And now we've had, 50 years of criminal justice that has been, completely insane. And in the MORE Act is in pending legislation right now. It's passed in the House Judiciary Committee. And then guess who the sponsoring senator is? Kamala Harris. So now she's the VP ticket. So if she gets in, the MORE Act should pass in January next year with Biden. So hopefully we're going to deschedule cannabis. And then, but back to the course, it's like then we go into the research. Who was Meshulam? What did he discover? What was the process of finding the endocannabinoid system? And then all of the cannabinoids, and then the terpenes and all the secondary influences, and then all the products that we have that we can utilize with onset, duration, all the pharmacology, ligands and receptors and interactions, and all of that is explained. And then I go into all of the different conditions like neurology, epilepsy, autism.
That's a great thing that's a wonderful thing about this book. I keep opening it up because you guys can't see it. But there's actual well, what do I use for this? And what do I use for that? And how do I take care of this? Like, again, look at more charts. This book is full of, this is such an awesome book. I'm so proud of you.
And that was pain management that you just opened to. And it's not just about the cannabinoids, but cannabinoids are facilitators to health promotion. So in pain management, how do I use cannabis to improve my movement, to get me walking, to get me stretching, to get me to be able to strengthen and tone,
Yes,
and to wean off
exactly.
opiates. And I actually tell people in that book, as well as the course, specifically how to do that. Well, that's eat, sleep, relax, forget, protect. That's what the endocannabinoid system does.
Wow,
And
repeat that. That was really clever. Did you make that up?
no. Do you know? Do you know who said that?
No.
Vincent DiMarzo. He's an Italian scientist, and he coined that term: eat, sleep, relax, forget, protect. And that's
Whoa.
literally all of the physiologies that the endocannabinoid system helps govern in the buffering and fine tuning of every part of our being.
Oh, and right now in the whole pandemic conversation, the
Mm.
conspiracy theorists are all the way over here, and then the other people are all the way over here. We're all stressed in some level. Everybody is, you're not untouched, whether you want to wear a mask or not, whether you think it's a man-made virus or not. Everyone is affected by it. And we all have this underlying stress that's happening. Our homes, our jobs, our way of life is all being threatened by this.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, whether it's government induced or it's an actual virus. I'm not getting into that conversation. But the real truth is that we're all really affected by it. And a little bit of cannabis is going to go a long way for all you people.
Right. And
help you calm down, relax into the fact that there's always change in the world. You're never without change. Your life is always going to be stressful. Always.
Well, we're different from one day to the next. But here's the thing about, so people have been asking me, what about cannabis and COVID? Because there are a lot of things in the chat rooms.
Let's talk about that. How exciting. Right? Yes. What about cannabis and COVID?
Right. So in Israel and in Canada, we're not really researching it in this country like we should, but cannabis, CBD specifically, has been said to close down some of the receptor target doors in the cells for this virus, the ACE inhibitor pathways. So if we can close down the doors, imagine your cell has 100 doors and CBD taking it can close 70 of them. You're softening your chances at getting this. The other thing is think about all the comorbidities. We talk about blood pressure and cardiovascular issues, metabolic issues, diabetes. Guess what? People that are taking cannabis on a daily basis, long term, they have better metabolic function. So higher HDL, good cholesterol, lower LDL, bad cholesterol, better numbers in triglycerides, better insulin sensitivity, less cases of diabetes, lower BMI, lower abdominal girth. Guess what? That makes a healthier person overall. Now we can talk about comorbidities. If COVID comes and knocks on my body, I don't think I'm going to get sick because I'm so healthy now. At 54,
right, you had mentioned to me last time I saw you that you hadn't even had a cold.
No.
Like you were someone who got seasonal illness often, but you have not had that experience.
No, since I left Anthem, I have not gotten sick. For the first couple of years, I still did because I was still getting the flu shot. I stopped taking the flu shots, and I haven't been sick since I stopped getting the flu shots. But the other thing is, because my body systemically is at such an enhanced level of health all the time, I don't have comorbidities. 5 years ago, I had high blood pressure, I had depression, I had all these issues, and I was on pills for that. Crazy enough, I was highly stressed.
Without going into it, though, you had a very extreme situation, all right, that led you to a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
So cannabis was very helpful in, you lost a loved one in a very horrific kind of way. And it was, when you were just kind of on the way out of that when I met you. And I really feel like cannabis has helped you heal through that.
Yes.
It's given you the space in your brain, the space in your heart, the ability to have an understanding of just the simple process of life, and all of that. And with cannabis's friend, psilocybin, great things could be accomplished.
Yeah.
As far as our emotional body, right?
Yeah, no, when I crashed my bicycle, it was a year before that, I tragically lost my husband, and I was going through a lot. And so what happened was, slowly over time, the cannabinoids started to heal my body, and I didn't know that simultaneously they were also healing my mind, my emotions, my spirit. They were giving me the presence to face things and to start processing. Because when you lose somebody tragically and there's a sudden death, you just question yourself all the time, and you're in such fight or flight. And now, he left me all of his debts as well. So, I basically was always in a panic mode. And cannabinoids gave me the processing time to really sort that through. And now I'm a whole person. I'm still dealing with all of the crap, but I'm able to do it from a grounded way rather than a reactive way. I truly believe that cannabinoids are the answer to that process for all of
that
us.
grounding, calming, take a breath, it
Mm-hmm.
really just allows us to have space in our brain. This is one of the things I tell all of my autistic moms, like
Mm-hmm.
how is cannabis going to help your child? It's going to create a space in their brain
Well,
where they
right.
can actually have a minute where that ADD, ADHD, all that hyperactivity that's going on in the neuronet
Yep.
is going to just gently slow down.
Right, because we get into glutamate all the time being active, and the cannabinoids, CBD specifically, is going to balance out GABA with glutamate. So it's going to slow down
Who would think that glutamate would be the problem?
Well, and there's glutamates in foods too, so make sure that you're eating clean. The other thing that happened after Warren's death is I started to eat much more of a plant-based diet. And, got rid of, the burgers and fries.
So the same thing, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the same thing about is your plant material that you're going to compound clean? Is your body clean? So if you're using cannabis, but you're eating fast food, junk food, and drinking soda and smoking Marlboros,
no deal.
You are lessening the impact. Yeah. You are making your body inhibited from being able to heal. Yeah. So it is a whole thing. You are a freaking plant human being. Right. You are a plant. So you must treat yourself like a plant. You need minerals. You need water. You need sunlight.
Yeah. And all of that. And God gave us this plant to eat, to graze with, to graze our animals with. When you think about, how our food supply used to have hemp in it because the animals were grazed in this, and I don't know if you've heard this, when they took away industrial hemp and said that it's illegal to plant in America still, and they stopped grazing the farm animals on it, then 2 years later, we started to get neural disease and autism and immune dysfunction,
right,
and all of the
things.
Because
we weren't having it organically. We weren't wearing it exactly.
Right, and the crazy thing is, when you think about this, think about how, people say, why are we hardwired for this plant? We don't have to know the answer to that. Only God does. But it's like our systems are fine-tuned by this plant. And if we can put a little bit of it in us every day, now we can give us that fine-tuning, because otherwise we get an ECS deficiency, the endocannabinoid deficiency. And we want to always supplement, just like vitamin D. When we don't get enough and we want to increase our immune health, we also need to increase our endocannabinoid system health. And we do that through small amounts of cannabinoids from the plant, the phytocannabinoids, every day. So put it back in the food supply. And they're starting to. Now that the Farm Bill passed, they're starting to graze animals, and hopefully we're changing our health status back.
Yeah, exactly. And so something like hemp hearts that you can get at Costco, they're not going to heal you in any way, but they are going to help you because they're an awesome
It's a superfood. Yeah,
it's
antioxidant. It's the micronutrients, the phytonutrients that you get from that absolutely will be healing for you.
Are way better than fish oil.
Yeah.
So, we've already been at it an hour. Elizabeth is so smart. We're going to have one more question, and that's about how does cannabis help somebody who has bipolar? Is it, if you have a mental issue, a mental disease, like something like bipolar, first of all, or schizophrenic, please do not go off your meds. First and foremost, do not go off your meds. Just make a decision I'm going to start smoking pot, and then I won't be, I won't have this schizophrenia anymore. It's not like that. So can you just speak a little bit about, people, cannabis, who are living with things like bipolar, schizophrenia, family members, things like that?
So CBD is a very potent antipsychotic. And so when I'm working with mental health patients, and I spent 8 years in locked units. When I was an RN in hospitals, my main
Nurse Ratchet.
Yeah, well, no, I was the good one. But my main specialty was psychiatry. So what people with mental health need to know is CBD, 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 whole plant cannabis CBD if possible. That's what you want to do for a few months. And then for anxiety, keep it with CBD. You might want to use a little bit of a one-to-one or an indica hybrid THC to bring things down once in a while. Somebody that has depression, a little bit of sativa. You can get a microdose, 2 to 5 milligram little sativa microtabs.
Right, and these are things where vape pens are really helpful because especially the depressant, you hit a vape that's a high sativa, a sativa strain that's implemented with some terpenes from sativa plants. A little bit goes a very long way, and you feel really great.
Yes, but when we're talking bipolar, when we're talking schizophrenia, when we're talking about anybody with psychosis, we want to be talking about very, very little THC. People that have any kind of psychotic, no THC. Anybody that's psychosis, they should only stick with the CBD. Schizophrenia, only the CBD, because their system is so whacked out. Now, the question is, can we over time heal that with CBD so that maybe a year into treatment, they can microdose some THC and see what happens? But now we have to assess functionality. Are they, is their sleep-wake cycle okay? Or is the bipolar still cycling hypomania and people aren't sleeping? Are they having psychotic? Are they impulsive? You don't want to add THC when somebody's already impulsive. You want to, you need that grounding of the CBD just setting the tone in the body and not using THC. But if anybody wants to talk with me, I'll consult with them, holisticcaring.com.
Yes, exactly, because we're going to wrap it up in a second. And Elizabeth, I believe you have earned a hat. I believe you need a hemp hat. So I'm going to bring you one by. Because you'll look so awesome with this hat on. And you can get them at our store. But don't you think Elizabeth needs a hat? I think she's earned a hat.
All right,
so,
I'll take one.
You guys, before we wrap this up, I just want to say, Elizabeth, I just adore you. You're my dear friend. You have so much knowledge. You're such a smart lady. You just are just like unbelievably intelligent. For, how to find her, Haley has put this all in the feeds. You can get to all the pathways to Elizabeth. I'm sure most of you are going to have more questions. She's like a wellspring of information. It never ends. It never ends. I mean, this woman could talk eternally on this topic. She has so much information.
Thank you. And tell your healthcare providers, if you're watching, to go to holisticcaring.com and click on the Become a Coach and learn about that, because I want to train
healthcare providers. They're like a whole nother whatever, okay? So I want to talk to you, who's sitting in your living room in your car listening to this, wondering, how can I help myself with cannabis? This is it right here. This is the most comprehensive guide I have freaking read. Okay. I have not read as much as Elizabeth because I just can't. But this is such a fabulous book. I can't thank you enough for writing it. It took you like over a year to put it together, right?
2 years.
2 years, yeah. And I mean, this woman would not even go have coffee with me. I'm writing my book. When I finish writing my book, I can go have coffee. Okay, Elizabeth, it's 18 months later. Nope, I'm not done yet. I can't go have coffee, right? Okay, so now I can finally get her to have coffee, all right? So here is a great book that you can gift your healthcare professional.
There you go.
Like if you were working with an oncologist, buy a book for them. It will help them, okay? But if you are living with whatever issue you have, okay, this book is going to help you. It's going to help you sort out how to help yourself. And that is why I really wanted Elizabeth to join me this morning, was because I am all about, like, teach a person how to fish.
Yep.
I don't want to give you a fish. I want to give you a pole and teach you to go out there and how to get that fish yourself. Because as you heal, as you get your own information, as you become a whole person, you are able to go out and help others. And this is how we heal ourselves, by taking care of ourselves. The more we care for ourselves, the more we educate ourselves, the more of a resource we become for others. And if you didn't know it, your purpose on this planet is not to take up space and make garbage, okay? You are here for a much greater purpose. So tune into it. Get this book. Seriously, get this book. Elizabeth, is there anything that you want to say in closing?
Well, just God bless you all. Trust in the process. Register to vote, and please vote. And help us pass the MORE Act. I saw that in the chat, the MORE Act. I'm on the board of Los Angeles NORML, and you can go to normal, NORML.org, and contact your senators and have them pass the MORE Act, because that's our quickest way towards decriminalization, descheduling, and sanity for this plant.
Right, and that's what we really, so let's please understand the difference between decriminalization and legalization.
Yeah.
But we just have to end on that point. Decriminalization means that it's available to all of us, and it's more of a supplement as opposed to legalization.
We need full legalization.
We just really want to be careful that the pharmaceutical companies don't get a patent on these cannabinoids, and then we cannot process them or make them. So the MORE Act is really important in the way that it allows us to be accountable to ourselves and make our own medicine.
Yeah.
We really want that as people. We really need that. Okay, I'm going to show the book one more time.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for the invitation. It was an honor to be on here. My 2 cups of coffee did me just fine to wake up early. So thank you.
Yeah, she told me when I asked her 7 o'clock, she was like, 7 a.m. What do you
I don't function then.
You got it. You got it. All right, you guys, we're going to sign off. This is going to be available on the Holistic Caring page on Facebook, Firebird Touch Therapy page, my feed, Elizabeth's feed. You know, we appreciate all of you who are watching. Please share, share, share. There was so much great information in this minimal little hour that we had with her. She's just such a source of information, and I'm so blessed to have you at such an inside level for me. You know, when I was first making tinctures and stuff, Elizabeth was super helpful with math for me, because I didn't realize in high school that I would be doing chemistry in my adulthood. So I went surfing instead of going to chemistry class. I mean, why would I want to do that? I smoked weed. I was in, you know, getting my endocannabinoid system strong, and surfing. So she is a wealth of information, a wealth. So please hit her up. She does coaching one-on-one. She can speak to your group of people. You know, she wrote this fabulous book to help us all. So thank you, my friend. I look forward to seeing you soon. And maybe we'll have you back, yeah?
Yeah, you're welcome. And you have a beautiful day, and God bless you all.
Okay, bye-bye.